Okay, so we're going to kick straight off. So the first thing I'm going to say is we're going to do this like an Uber pitch, right?
Perfect.
Have you heard this before? This is a term?
I think so. Is it when you're like in the back of an Uber and they're like, "Oh, well, what do you do? What are you about?"
Exactly. In your
Okay.
short version, you'll give someone you've got a 10-minute car ride. What's your answer for the Uber pitch?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'd probably start out with I'm from Pennsylvania, so I live in the United States, and I grew up. I went to Catholic school my entire life, and then I wanted something different for college, so I think you guys call that university, right? You guys are
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
university, amazing. So I went far away for university. I went about a 9-hour drive from my family just to kind of figure out who I am, what I'm about, because I wasn't allowed to, my parents were a little strict when I was growing up. So I went to school in the South, and I feel like I found a lot of sense of identity, a lot of like what I enjoy doing, what I don't enjoy doing. And I was also overweight as a kid. Like I really had a hard time in school. Like a lot of kids made fun of me. And so I think that evolved into a very unhealthy relationship with like exercise and understanding like food choices, and always feeling kind of like I was being judged for what I was eating, or like if I was working out it was because I was fat, it wasn't because I enjoyed doing it. And so I made it a big point to like almost make it like part of my identity to exercise. And so I became a group fitness instructor, and I taught hip hop dance classes. and
Sorry.
can you
Hip
imagine?
hop
No,
dance
I
classes. I
hip
need a
hop dance
breakdown of
classes.
what that is.
Yes, so I would be in the front of a room, and we would have on like, I'm trying to think of like a good artist, like Drake. We would have Drake in the background, and I would do like choreographed routines, and the people behind me would follow along with those routines.
Wow. Okay.
So I did that for a while, and it was great. It was very cardio. And so I think a lot of women are taught how you lose weight is you do a lot of cardio and you eat salad. And so that's what I was trying to do for so long. That is what I felt like was ingrained in just in my entire adult being. Like even my adolescence, like just that was how you lose weight. And so I tried that for so many years, and then the pandemic hit. And my brother is a football player, and so I was in the basement like teaching my group fitness classes because we tried doing them remotely. And my brother was like, "You know what? Let's try a barbell. Let's give you a different type of workout to do. Let's try squatting." So we did some squats, some deadlift in my basement. I didn't bench. I can only imagine I would have only been able to do the bar because bench is not my lift. But I was able to. I failed 185 on squat, and I have that video. And I also failed 225 on deadlift, which actually is a pretty insane starting point if you think about it. Like that's pretty good. That's
Funnily enough, do you say you failed 225, which
I did
for
fail
the British
225.
listeners, 100 kilos.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
we're going to learn this today.
Yes, we
I'm going to
are.
test my conversion skills. This is going to be catastrophic because Lucy, who I had on last week, who's just been invited to
Yeah.
Worlds, the first lift she ever failed, I believe, was a 100 kilo deadlift or a 100 kilo squat as well. It's like that marker test.
Yes.
That was the fail she hit as well. Same thing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, 100 kilo. I feel like that's a pretty impressive deadlift though. Like
That's a hell of a
as far
start.
as
Yeah.
things are concerned, that's pretty good. And
So
then
when you started out on that, because before we get to that bit, did you do any sports before any of this?
I did play lacrosse for a little bit. I was not good. I was not good at all. I played soccer too growing up. Again, not good. And I was mainly a dancer. Like that was mainly my sport per se.
Yeah, yeah.
Not that like I thought sports were for dudes, but I just kind of, I don't know, it didn't really appeal to me. The whole like, oh, I'm gonna be. That's actually something else I like about powerlifting. We can get into that later. But I just never did well like running on the field with my teammates. I didn't like team sports. Like I didn't enjoy that per se. That kind of community was good in respects, but also you're relying on other people to perform well, basically, versus like powerlifting. It's individual. You are make or break for your own experience. So I think
We'll
that
come back
really
to
appealed
that.
to me about power. Yeah, we can totally go back.
That's
but
a whole thing. Yeah, yeah.
yes, it is.
Okay, so brother introduces you, pick up a barbell. This is during all of the pandemic?
During all of the pandemic. And so I
Okay.
I liked it, but I was doing like for probably 8 or 9 months was doing just sets of like 8 to 12. And so I randomly at the end of that like 8 months, I randomly like pulled a deadlift. I was like, let me test my maxes, and I was able to pull 170 kg. So that was like a solidifying moment for me. I was like, I need to be good at this. I want to be committed to this. I want to do well. I want to see how far I can go.
This is did you say 9 months in?
Yeah, like I was doing hypertrophy. A lot of just like high
And you're
volume.
already pulling 170. Like, that's a pretty good 9 months in.
That's pretty good. And I wouldn't say I've progressed a ton since then, because I've been lifting for another, like, I guess it's been 2.5 years since that time. And I haven't even, oh gosh, we can get into that too. I've had a hard battle with 220. I've had a hard battle with 220 on deadlift.
Before we started our chat, I went through a lot of your Instagrams to see where you were at with your training. But yeah, we'll cover that too.
I love and appreciate your research, Callum. I do.
There's time that's been put in from our first conversation, which I think was just about CapCut and like editing of reels, and then I went back and checked through all of the stuff and looked at the training. That first conversation was just like, teach me. But yeah, so got to that point, pulled 170 and was like, right, this is my thing, right? That's where you got to.
Yeah.
And then was it like sheer commitment to only that from that point forward?
Honestly, yes. Like, it was really that moment that I was like, this sport is for me, and I hired a coach. And I would recommend that to anybody who decides that like powerlifting is going to be for me. Like, definitely hire a coach. That's like the best thing you could possibly do, is just somebody who can not only hold you accountable, but can kind of show you the ropes of things. Like, because I feel like you can only do so much online research. And there's so much information out there to have to sift through that yourself. Certain things work for certain people, other things won't. And so it's not a common experience. I feel like that was really like my defining moment. And I have been consistent since then. I went out with my friends this past weekend, and we were talking about how like I've never taken a break from powerlifting. I just have been straight on since this was December of 2020 that I pulled 170. And I just have been like all gas, no breaks since then. I've competed 4 times, never even taking like a week off in between. Just, I love it. And that's why, like, it's not for everybody. I do appreciate and understand that, but I love it. And so I enjoy seeing that progress over time, as slow as it might be or feel like at points.
Well, I was going to say, as slow as it might be, like, I think you've done pretty well so far. When you're stuck at like a 220 sort of being stuck point, which is relatively short-lived, by the way. I've seen the time frame. Yeah. That's a pretty good place to be stuck so far. But just to check, 2 things. 1, this is your Uber pitch. Holy shit, you're familiar with your Uber driver now.
Yes, I am. We're really good buds. We're a friend.
You've been bonding. You've been like,
I know. I think I'm getting an invite to the wedding. I do, yeah.
And we're not even up to. So all we've got up to is like you hired a coach.
Yes.
Then tell me about competitive career. Like, obviously, we'll cover this in more detail again, but where did you get from there to here?
So after I started with a coach, I was only on program for maybe like 2 months before I decided that, yes, I want to compete. And me and my friend actually signed up for a meet together, which I would recommend highly for anybody who wants to do their first competition. That was such a wonderful introduction to the sport, doing the whole meet prep process into meet day with someone really was such a special component of my powerlifting career. I will never forget that meet because we got to do it together, and I'm still friends with this girl. So we actually she's who I hung out with over the weekend, and we were discussing taking breaks from powerlifting. But I did that. Were you training
together as well into that competition?
Trained together into that competition, and it really solidified my because I looked at powerlifting as more of because I was okay at it at that point, because I mean, given my beginner status, I was very good, but comparatively to everyone else in the sport, I was just like very intermediate. So we weren't in there to win or really do anything. I looked at it as a social opportunity almost, and I think that's a really special part of powerlifting. Like, it brought me to you, like being in a community together. So I really appreciate that part of the sport, and so that was really what my first meet was about. Like, I went in there just to have fun and just enjoy the experience with my friend. So it was a really good way to, I think, go into the sport. Is just head in there, have a good time, hit all your lifts. I did miss my second bench. I just, pure strength, just couldn't get it up. But I did get it on my third, so it worked out.
That wasn't too bad.
Yeah,
Just
no.
this Uber driver is going to be like, where did you go next? So
Like,
you did your first comp, loved the first comp, and then from there, because like you are very steadily making your way to where you just got, like I saw your last competition and like
yeah.
the performance, the smile on the last squat. So like, what got you from that meet to that meet?
I'm gonna cry even thinking about that. So I had a really hard time in the middle there. I competed at so there's two different federations that I'd say are very popular in America. So USPA has since had some difficulties on the legal end, and so they have kind of had less popularity in the recent months. So I initially was a USPA lifter though, and so I competed at USPA nationals, and it went absolutely horribly. I missed 4 of my 9 lifts, and I had never had such a terrible performance like that. And so I really had to go back to the drawing board and decide, like, okay, I'm not gonna quit. Like, I've decided I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna figure it out. But like, where do we grow and change from here? And so I just basically I talked to my coach about it, and we changed some programming things. And nowadays I do all of my primary lifts on the same day. So I think that has really been pivotal in the way that I'm able to train in the gym and then translate it to the platform. I don't think that's for everyone, but between that first meet that I did have really terrible meet experiences. And I don't think that's necessary for everyone, and I hope people can avoid that. And I think having like good people around you who can kind of guide you through the process can help avoid that. But for me, it was a very big learning experience, and I'm kind of almost glad I went through it, because it made this most recent meet mean so much more to me. And I will be honest, I was in such a terrible headspace going through this prep, going into this meet, because I felt like I had only had terrible meets. And I know that's not true. Like, even looking at my like open powerlifting, like, it's clear that I don't have like terrible meets, but it just, as I was prepping, felt like I was just going to have another bad meet, and I just wasn't able to. I would never go 9 for 9. I would never hit these huge lifts that I felt like I was maybe capable of, that my training was showing that I could possibly do. But then and like literally a week out, like I was just missing lifts for no good reason. Like I built the strength, but I just was missing these lifts. About 3 weeks out, I missed 215 on deadlift, but pulled it at RPE 7 on the platform. Like, I missed, I ended up squatting 187.5 on the platform, but had missed 182.5 in the gym 3 weeks before. So it's just
3 weeks before.
3 weeks before. The taper really did me good.
Yeah, you tapered hard.
Tapered hard. Literally a whole 5 kgs higher. I mean, it was a grind, like, don't get me wrong, but it was like, I did it. And it's just like that mental fortitude to not give up when it felt so horrible and felt like that was my only option, just to like keep going. And I had the best meet of my life. And so I think that just having that whole like full circle experience of like how terrible it can feel to have a bad meet, and like, even if it feels horrible going through prep, to still show up on meet day, like, it's possible to still have an amazing day no matter how all the other days went. It's just another day. Like, you go into the gym, you give it your best, and all those days add up, and hopefully culminate in a good meet.
What were so for everyone else's context, what were the numbers that you hit? And I'm going to pretend I don't know.
For all intents and purposes, because he didn't do his research. No, he did.
He didn't write anything down. It's irrelevant.
So I did 187.5 on squat. I got 92.5 on bench and 215 on deadlift. And I definitely think I had more in the tank on deadlift, but I'm very happy with that, because I had a lot of grip issues, which I had never had before. But I was pulling on a deadlift bar. Do you guys have the deadlift bar?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I had a love-hate relationship with it, but it's a lot thinner than the power bar. And so
Yeah,
I think it did affect my grip and ability to hold on to heavier weights. So if anyone's planning on switching from deadlift bar to power bar in the near future, maybe keep that in mind, because that is a
maybe sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Maybe do it sooner. Absolutely.
Okay, so now we've got through the Uber pitch. We've gone. This is the
I hope we're
short
going
version.
somewhere far.
And they're like, "Can you just get out and go to where you're going? Get out the Uber."
Get out of my car.
But like, here's my life story. Okay, so the brief bit, the stuff that we like, you touched on tons within that, and I'll try to make sure I keep a note of it. I even literally wrote things down so I remember.
No, I
So
love and
early
appreciate
bits.
that so much.
Because I come from a similar place that I never did other sports, like specific sports within team sports, whatever, before powerlifting. This was my sport, everything else. What do you think for you? Because one of the big things I was going to talk to you about as a whole was community, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I'm very aware, even where you train is like the dream. Like, so you train, how do people actually say their name, by the way?
Power Build.
They do, because it's just spelt with less letters, and I'm
It
like,
is.
assuming we're calling it the same. And I'm like, I know it looks cool, but like,
You don't need the other letters. Yeah.
we don't need the fucking vowels. Right, okay, so, because Power Build is probably the most aesthetic gym on the planet. Like,
I agree.
it came up on my feed, and it's where I came across you, is because I found the gym first, and then I followed the gym, and I was like, this place is incredible.
I'm
So you've
so
gone
honored
from-
by that, actually, because I really,
it's-
it's such a wonderful community of people, and like for me to stand out to you amongst them is so fantastic.
But so you start with not doing team sports, right? But now you are like deep in community. Like, we know that's a crazy bit of power of all of powerlifting. What sort of impact do you think that powerlifting made you want community, or what impact do you think community has had on your powerlifting?
Oh my gosh, that's such an excellent question. It's not that I like never wanted community from like a sports standpoint. It's just like I feel like it's a different type of community coming from a powerlifting perspective, because you can look at it from like there's just so much respect for one another in there, and you want to see each other succeed. Not that you don't in like a normal sports setting, but I just think it's like a different type of understanding of like wanting people to accomplish their goals and really like celebrate each other's success. It's just, and it feels like everyone's celebrating your success on like an individual basis, which feels really good. I didn't necessarily seek out community in the gym. The community really found me. I started going to the gym like maybe midway through COVID. So I want to say it was like a couple months in. So COVID started like March 2020 in the States. And so by like July of 2020, I had stepped foot in a gym for the first time, which I never really went to the gym other than to teach my group fitness class and maybe use the treadmill or elliptical sometimes. I never touched the weights. I didn't want to get bulky. I didn't want to be bulky.
I want to
was
teach
gonna
a hip hop
immediately
class,
be a
and I want to be
female
left alone.
bodybuilder.
Just you and the hip hop, nothing else.
Exactly, me and the hip hop, me and Lil Wayne. I just really, like that was my first introduction to the gym, and I just figured I was going to go in there and I was going to lift by myself. But really going there on a regular basis, like if you can go into the gym like 4 to 5 times a week, you're going to find a community there, regardless of like whether you're into powerlifting or into bodybuilding or just general fitness as a whole. Like really seeing the same people, you'll eventually start talking. There were a couple of female powerlifters, and those are probably the 3 girls that I would attribute most to my like entry into the actual powerlifting scene. 3 girls that were really strong and like lifted so much more than me and just lifted together. That was really appealing to me as somebody who was just in the gym. I literally was doing hip thrusts in a corner by myself. So having that be like almost like it was like right in front of my face, like that was very inspiring to me. And so I wanted to be a part of that. And so like that was really how I got into a community of powerlifting. And then just you slowly make more and more connections. I'd say like I train at a lot of different gyms at this point. Like I'll go to Power Build one day, I'll go to Iron Sport another day. I was just at a place called Quad Strength Systems that's in the state next to Pennsylvania. And so it was really like you make all those different connections everywhere, and then when you compete on meet day, it's like everyone's in your corner. It's the most amazing feeling in the world to have all these people like be like, wow, like you've really like focused on your own growth, you've accomplished everything that you set out to do. Like it's such a wonderful feeling.
Because one of the things that's quite apparent in the UK by comparison is so specialist powerlifting gyms are few and far between. So
Really?
where
I was
obviously,
gonna ask you that.
Yeah, so where obviously you went to that first gym, you're doing your hip thrust in the corner, and you fall
Yes.
into a powerlifting community. Most of us, like even the gym I train at, a powerlifting community there exists because I brought people into powerlifting and then put them in the same place. So more often than not, you don't have like in the UK, to fall into powerlifting is harder. Like it's normally you're one of like 3 people in a commercial gym and no one else is touching it. So obviously that's got to have had a massive impact. Those first people that spoke to you, did they lead you towards more of it, or were they just like cultivating your interest? What sort of impact were they having?
They definitely cultivated my interest. They were really, there is like an inspiration, like those are numbers I could one day hit, because once I started going to the gym and like was able to understand the process of like linear progression and progressive overload and putting more weight on the bar every week, like I aspire, these girls were like pulling, I don't know what the equivalent of that is, 160 kg I guess is 350 pounds ish.
Yeah, it's around that.
They were
Yeah, I think
pulling
it's bang
weights
on.
like that, and I was like, wow, that's so inspiring. I want to one day do that. And that's really interesting, though, that there's just mostly it. How are gyms set up for the most part? Are they like different sections have like
It varies.
Okay.
Because there's such a disparity between like, so the fitness culture is built in the UK a lot over the last so this is my 11th year in like powerlifting, and in the first years I was going to gyms and it wasn't a thing, like it was completely zero. And obviously at that point it was the OG sort of powerlifting, where powerlifting was the really big men and it was mostly equipped, and so it didn't really exist in a commercial gym because no one knew that stuff. And so you tend to get like, there's a little bit of a squat rack, there's a shitty bench somewhere, and people do bits and bro-y sort of work. Over the last like 2-3 years, there's more powerlifting gyms that exist around the UK, but they are, we go out, we find them, we go do a day there, and then we go back to our crappy gym. And so that sort of environment, like because one of my goals is to build like power building in the UK, like having this gym and having this center point, because we don't know what we don't have. And so I'm immensely jealous of the American culture, where they take to sport as a whole really well, and they build communities like no other. Like it's unbelievable. And so obviously these guys, like for you, this is, you immediately become aware of the standard and the potential. So even with my partner, when she started, she was the strongest person in her gym, and then she met me, and I was talking about the people I coached, and I told her specifically about one athlete, this 57 kilo lifter I coached who had a 210 deadlift, and she was like, I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know that existed. And her
That's
training,
crazy.
but that was sick. But like with that, with love to her, she wasn't the strongest person. She was just one of them. And when she found that out, she was like, oh, so if that's possible, and then her training slowly climbs. And I see it like the, you know, the 4-minute mile, like the year that got broken, where no one thought it was possible. And then the same year, I think it was like 3 more people. The next year, it was like 20 people. So as soon as you become aware of what you can do, the ceiling rapidly climbs for you. So you go from this person with a 170 kilo deadlift, and you go, this bastard out here is doing 220. I can do that. I could get there. How quickly did you feel like you climbed being in that community?
So tremendously quickly. I definitely, so one of my biggest moments in powerlifting was I got to meet one of the women that really inspired me, who I like never met. It was just one of the girls that I like found through Instagram. I mean, obviously, like I think like worldwide she's known. Like Daniela Mello was really truly one of the women that got me into the sport, because I like really was coming from a place of, I just, want to be skinny. Like it was just like my goal. And then I saw her, who she doesn't look like she lifts the weight that she does. Like she doesn't look overtly like muscular, and like I think a lot of people get into the gym for aesthetic reasons, and then that can evolve depending on who and what they encounter when they're in the gym. Like for me, seeing all of the women lifting heavy weights together, like that was really cool and appealing to me. But like everyone gets into the gym like a different way. But I think that she really was like the person who I was like, this is possible for me. Like she broke down those barriers, like you're saying, like once you see it done, like you understand that it is possible and you can push yourself internally towards those things. That's so perceptive. I love that concept. But that really is so true. Like that really did happen for me. Just seeing her do those things really opened so many doors. And I think that she has done that for so many other women as well. I don't think it's just me. Daniela Mello, like absolutely. I said, is very widely known in the powerlifting community. And I think
more so now, yeah. I think back even a few years back, she was a smaller name, and obviously now she's a notoriety and like everyone's aware. But I think one of the big things that I only was thinking about while you were saying that was like when, back when you started, you didn't want to get bulky, right?
Yes.
Because the strong people, the only one we associated with was men. We only knew the big, strong
Absolutely.
men, but the
The
strongest
equipped
women
male
that exist.
powerlifters, yes.
Yeah, they're the only ones any of us knew about. So we thought, oh, lifting heavy is that. And I would say,
Absolutely.
like where you say with Danny, like we didn't know, you didn't know, she doesn't look like she lifts the weight she lifts, is because no one knew what strong looked like for a woman, like at
Yes.
that level. So now, like, there are so many more women who are squatting north of 180, deadlifting
Yes.
over 200. Deadlifting over 200 was unfathomable when I started out. Like, there was never a woman that was doing it. And now it's like, oh no, this happens a lot. So, like,
Yes.
finding out what strong looks like is like, as for a gender movement, being like, oh, strong can look like Jessica Bittner, it can look like Danny, it can look like a whole scope of women.
And that's so, I feel like, foundational to the growth of this sport as well. Just like people recognizing what strong can look like, because I feel like as a society in general, we're just so aesthetically based. And so there's no like set standard for even like someone like Natalie Richards. She literally is like this
Yeah.
big and lifts 225. So it's just so, like there's no like like there doesn't need to be a stereotype there, because like we're constantly proving them wrong every single day.
And it drastically shifts. Like,
It's
it could be the
so
same,
yeah.
different women in the same weight class who look completely different.
So
Or it can
dynamic
just be like
like that.
the same weight, multiple different women who pull over 220 kilos at different weight classes, and being like, you couldn't have told me what any of these people would have looked like or should have looked like, which is an unfathomable, only 5 years of how that's really transpired, of like what strong has looked like now, what it's going to look like. Like the squat that I think it was like a 277. I can't remember the lady's name. I feel awful, but who beat Benika this year at Worlds.
I do know her name, but it is leaving.
Her name is so new to me
Canada.
because she's brand new as
Yes.
far as I'm concerned. And yeah, so like again, like the scope of what strength can look like and what that will do for women understanding what is possible, because that was like 277, I think, as a squat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fucking obscene,
Isn't
and a brand
it?
new standard. So for someone like yourself, you came from, like you say, it was to lose weight and then getting into strength training. What did you find, or what do you find now? Like your relationship with who you are and the aesthetic side of it. What has powerlifting shifted for you?
So much. And I like, obviously I'm not going to cry on this podcast, but it does make
You're
me
allowed to cry.
thank you. It's really like very, I'm trying to think even the right word, because it really was so transformative for me to just even understand that I don't have to like starve myself and do hours of cardio to like achieve a body that I'm proud of. And you don't even have to be necessarily like in a body you love in the moment to love yourself, but it just really like it, looking back at photos of myself back then and just how unhappy I was and just like how misguided I felt, like I almost felt betrayed by every like news outlet, every magazine I'd ever read, every celebrity who ever talked about weight loss and like how to achieve a body that you want. Like it just felt so misleading. And I understand that there's like so much money to be made in the diet and health industry. So, I mean, people got to say and do what they have to do. But as like a young girl, and like these were people, like I came across so many men and women through my adolescence and like early adulthood that like made me feel absolutely awful about how I looked. And it just was like, I feel like I didn't do this to myself in a way. Like it felt very much like it was a societal like plan against me almost. Like in America, like it's very much like I said even before, like you eat salad and you do cardio and then that's how you can get a bikini body. Like that's so straightforward. And then I did kind of shift my mentality of like, oh, I want to be super skinny, to like, oh, like let me like build a butt, let me like be a booty builder chick, okay? And like that I know I can, like you can physically build that, like versus like you can just have abs the next day. Like abs, I did learn, were mostly genetic, but also related to how much body fat you carry in your midsection. So I was like, I let go of that dream really quick.
No, that can leave. I'm fine with that.
That can go. I'll be fine without that. But I think I just, over time, as I did lose weight, I did start to shift my focus from like, okay, what do I look like versus like, what can my body actually physically do? And being proud of like, not what I see in the mirror, but overall what I'm able to do physically. Like, and I think a lot of athletic women do go through that, but I just was never a quote unquote athletic woman growing up. Like, I did sports, but I think even the girls who did do sports were like made fun of for their quads when I was in high school and grade school. It just was not very well accepted, or like it wasn't looked at very highly by anyone who I just think that kids are gonna like make fun of anyone who's different. But at the end of the day, like, it really has helped me so much as a person, not even just like being okay in the body that I like wake up and look at in the mirror. Like, it just doesn't, like, I just wasn't myself when I was overweight and felt like I didn't have any control over anything. Like, now I feel like I can be who I am and can love and interact with everyone around me in a way that's authentic to who I want to present to the world. So it just has like mentally done so much more for me than I could have ever imagined. And then to be able to maintain it also in like this way has been so empowering. Like, I weigh the same as I did like 2.5 years ago, which is something I could never say for the rest of my entire life. But like for the past 2.5 years, I've been able to like maintain my weight and like get stronger and enjoy what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. So just it like really, I have developed I feel like unique appreciation for powerlifting in that way. Like, there are a couple things that I feel like I enjoy about powerlifting that not maybe everyone does, and that's certainly one of them. And I feel like a lot of women could probably relate to that.
I think there's a lot of people I've worked with who have come from, I won't say necessarily eating disorders, but like disordered eating or like relationships with food. There's a sentence I use quite frequently with like anyone from that field, which is very similar to something you just said, but it stops being about what you can do to your body, but what your body can do. And like that bit where you're like, okay, it became this punishment for a long time where it's just like, I don't like this, I want to strip this away, which is such a like, when you see it at this point, looking back, you're like, I was fucking horrible to myself. That's awful.
Yes.
And then you get to this point and and I'm sure you still do as human nature, there might come a day where you're like, I feel a bit today. And then you go train and you're like, fuck, my body's cool. Like just some sort of output.
Callum, louder, yes.
But those days where like, and I say, because I still have those days, like my history is a whole other ball game. And there'll still be days where I'll come into the gym and I'm like, oh, I can tell I ate later last night. I feel a bit bloated today. And then you'll squat something and be like, fucking, I'll do it again. I don't give a shit. Like, this is amazing. My body's incredible.
Yes.
And that appreciation, like obviously injuries and so on are a whole other ball game. But when you learn that your body is like a phenomenally capable unit, as opposed to going like, I want to do something to my body, I want to shift what I have. It's one bit of powerlifting that was my initial bond with it. It's where my love of powerlifting came from in the beginning.
Who introduced you to powerlifting to begin with? Like, how did you, like, because of the environment that I feel like the gym is in the UK, like, how did you even find it?
Pure horrible luck. Honestly, it was like, so I went to the gym, like, because my brother needed someone to lift out for him. I hated the gym. Okay. It was awful. And then I trained with him. I hated every bit of it. And then I just kept to the training because I was overcoming some eating disorders and so I was going through bulimia at the time, and my justification for eating was I can get stronger, and I quite liked that relationship.
Yes.
So ditched all of that. And then a dude at my gym literally went, you're quite strong for a small guy, which is not a compliment. And then
in a way. I mean, I feel like when you first heard it probably wasn't.
Probably wasn't. No. No. Eventually, it's like, I'm strong for a big guy too. Leave me alone.
Yes.
But yeah, so he mentioned that he'd come across this idea of powerlifting, which back then in the UK was like it was go to some rustic gym, and I have no idea why, but I entered a competition, and then that was the start point. So it was very lucky that he mentioned it, and he was someone I trained with at the gym, and he'd just happened to come across it. So yeah, been a bit of a journey.
No, that's amazing. And I didn't know that about you, actually. I've more so been a binge eating disorder type of eating disorder girly, to put it lightly. So like a lot of my past was just like I wouldn't eat because I was told that's again like how you lose weight, and like in order to get stronger in the gym, you need to be eating your protein. You need to eat carbs. You need to have the fats to balance your hormones. Like it's all of those things are so important. Do you track your macros nowadays?
So I tracked calories and macros for 5 years without missing a day, and then I stopped, and then I'm like, I'll eyeball it every single day. So I don't
Yes.
actually track what I've just moved back because I'm like actually going through a form of prep again. But otherwise, I hadn't tracked it for like 4 years. But it's interesting because, like you say, the the whole nature of like getting into it and then being like, okay, so it might be binge eating disorder where it's like trying to learn to eat food again, or whether it's
Yes.
where I came from with anorexia and bulimia, and then it's the big problem is that, as you said, it feels like society has led you to logic. Like your brain goes, in order to look like X, I have to do this. Like,
Yes.
and so you're not doing something that's malicious at the beginning. So
No.
I read Muscle and Fitness magazines in the UK, and every
Yeah,
single
we have
thing
that over
was
here as well. Yeah.
yeah, and it was like how to get high protein and minimal carbs, minimal fat, minimal everything, calories as low as possible. And you realize that as soon as, like now, if I gave you that, you'd be like, this is shit. But that was the only information we were given, and so you had no
Yes.
choice but to end up with an eating disorder.
Like literally given to you by society because they can make money off of the idea that it's a new fun fitness diet that will help you lose weight.
Yeah, they can sell the pills, they can sell you the meal plan, and it is catastrophic. And it's why, so one of
Yes.
the things, like you say, you wouldn't have known that I came from that background
No.
because it's a difficult conversation for me. So I gave a TEDx talk many years ago, and there's a line I quote from a
Is this on
spoken
YouTube?
word. You're not watching it, it's fucking awful. I will have it taken down. There's
That's what I'm
there,
doing after this. Everyone
there
go do
was
me
a
after this.
there's a spoken word poet called Blythe Baird, and she talks about eating disorders, and there's a line she uses that kind of haunts me in a way, which is, I don't know how to talk about the rabbit hole without leading you down it. And it's this whole thing of like, if I talk about eating disorders, am I leading you into, because as you say, when that information was really prevalent when we were a little younger, it terrifies me that even letting people know it existed can lead them down that direction.
No,
It's a
I
hard one.
feel that, and I completely understand. I do shy away heavily from. I don't talk about my like past eating disorders on social media at all. Like it started out as like more of an anorexia type of diagnosis, and then it evolved. So I don't talk about that. Like I really don't. I understand.
But I think the power is like anyone who, if they do hear it, if those people being like, the bad thing is that it's not that the behavior is malicious, it's that you have to learn that what you think is right is wrong, and that is so hard to learn. And like you have to accept that
Unlearn.
information,
Yeah.
false narrative. So we have you now, and we've gone. Okay, so she's now competed. She's now at a different standard. She's now nearly breaking that 220, which would have moved on the day you pulled 215, but is what it is. So I saw it, I watched it, and I was like, oh, it would have been there. So what is the ambition? What is it that you want to achieve? Now you found your absolute love of powerlifting. Where is it you want to go next?
I want to give back to powerlifting as much as possible. As I like a lot of the time, I'll talk to my boyfriend about like being a national champion and like I think that's more where he wants to go. He wants to like be like the best in the world and like be so amazing at the sport, and I want that too. Like I enjoy the like competitive side of it. I obviously it feels good to win, like it does. So I'm not like self-limiting my abilities by saying like, oh, like I don't think I'll ever make it or anything like that. My goal really is I would like to learn enough and do enough in the sport that I could coach other women and help them fall in love with what their body can do versus, like I said, what it looks like just share that appreciation for what the sport can do with other women, because I think that it just has been, like I said, so transformative for me. So I'd like to get into coaching. Like that is really, I think, the next step for me in the sport. Like I still want to keep competing. I love competing. I think that even that competitive aspect of it is something I'd like to share with other women and other men as well. Just like it's really cool to have something to work for, which is what I like about powerlifting meets. Like to actually, it's cool to train powerlifting, and a lot of people do just go in the gym and do a powerlifting type of program and they're happy with that. But I think that having something, a date on the calendar that you're preparing for, that gives you purpose. And people, I feel like, ask all the time, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay disciplined? If you have something in mind that's important to you that you're preparing for, I think it makes it tremendously easier to stick to a program or plan that is set out either by you or by a coach. It makes it so much easier because you're like, I have an intention here versus just going in the gym and just kind of messing around and lifting weights. Maybe you're not pushing yourself as hard as you could be. So I think that is where I'd like to go next, is I'd really like to share that.
The bit that you touched on there is actually it is the reason that my coaching brand is called Dedicated by Design,
I
and
was
it's
gonna
the
ask
whole.
that.
So so obviously you talk about like motivation versus discipline, right? And people are like, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay disciplined? And it's like if you have something you're working towards, you're dedicated to that. You don't have to worry
Yes.
about the rest. And so that was the whole principle of like I've always despised the argument of like, do you need motivation or discipline more? And I'm like, you don't need
Neither.
one more, and
Well,
you
me
should
neither.
not really have to have the conversation. Like either you're not training for anything, and then there's the problem. There was a phrase I used once, which is like, if you're finding yourself in that kind of lull, then your goals are impotent, like they're without meaning, they're without value, and you need something poignant at the end. I remember having a conversation with my partner, and she hated it at the time, and now she's very grateful we had the conversation, I hope. She listens to these, so she'll let me know.
Oh, I'm
But
so
when we
excited.
when we were speaking about her training, she got into powerlifting. I ended up coaching her, and she had been very, very vocal about, I will never compete. I never want to do that. And I was like, sick. You don't have to. Absolutely fine. I'm just going to let you know people who compete make more progress. And she was like, why? And I was like, because they're working for something. And she was like, yeah, but I'm working to get stronger. I was like, I promise. Like, you can hate it, but it's true. And then she lined up a competition. Her training is soaring, and she's doing phenomenally
Amazing to
well.
hear.
But it is that bit. You are such a lovely person. She went from this like understanding of that you can love the process, but without something to target, you can be a little bit lost.
Yeah.
So with the people that you want to work with, are you hoping to work with people who just want to get stronger? Are you hoping to direct towards competition? What are you trying to do?
I think I would like to do a little bit of both. I enjoy just the promise of getting stronger, to be totally honest. Like, that really is something that I think resonates with me. And so I think I could share that with someone who is like, oh, like, I think I want to get stronger. Like, I can help you believe like you want to get stronger. Like, it's the coolest thing ever. But I also really do love the competition aspect. So I really am so open to both. And do you coach people that are in both realms, or do you mostly just coach
Yeah.
people in competition?
No, both. So one of the things I say, I ask two questions on an inquiry call, which are like really valuable to me. One of them is, if you could never compete again, would you still do it? Because if they only want to compete, I'm like, I don't really want to work with you. I'm not just about that element. And the same way of saying like, what is it that actually holds the value? So if you can set the goals properly, as a good coach, I think the biggest value is like, well, let's set a goal that's meaningful, and then you'll have the same outcome. If that goal is the comp or if that goal is a number, either way, it will have the same outcome. I think that's the value of it. So no, I probably have, I coach like, I did this the other day, so I've got 22% are all coaches that I coach, and then there's like 45% who are competing, and then the rest who are just getting stronger, and maybe
Amazing.
one day we'll see, but never mind to push someone towards.
Yeah, no, I think it's good to have a little mix of both too. Like, you really do get to work with two different types of mentalities. And I love that question of, if you could never compete again, would you still do it? Because that really does tie in, like, it helps them find a why for what they're in the gym doing. Because I don't think it is enough, like you said, like just being on a platform to get you in the gym every day.
So you've just said a thing that I was going to ask you, which is fucking wonderful. So I have a deep relationship to that question of what is your why, right? So for you, I think I wrote the question like, people talk about ethos and value and mission statements. And like, we'll say as an athlete, what is your why at your absolute core for this? What is it the reason that you find you're doing this still?
My truly to my core is so that I can show other people what is possible. Like, even what you said at the beginning, like, we just like, if no one has done it before you, like, it's hard to envision it, it's hard to see it without the actual reality of someone else having done it before you. It really just opens doors. And so to be able to empower other people through what so truly, like, the part of the reason I like went with barbells and Bentleys, like, it's actually a Post Malone reference, which a lot of people don't know about my Instagram
That
name.
is one of the questions on here.
Yeah, it's beer bongs and Bentleys is a name that I don't think a lot of people have heard anymore. It's his like 2015 album that he came out with. It's got like a lot of hits on it, actually. It's got like Paranoid. I don't know, but nobody's like a Post Malone fan, I guess, anymore.
Everyone's moved past it.
Yeah, everyone's moved past it. So I wanted to put barbell somewhere in my Instagram name. I didn't really think that deeply about it, I guess, when I started powerlifting. It really was just like let me post my training type of page. But like, I think just like there's so much potential in what a barbell can do for all different walks of life, like whether you're like super young and you just want to like, like maybe get a little stronger, like, for a sport that you're doing, or if you're in your 20s or 30s and you find that you want to have an aesthetic look that would, you'd be happy with personally, or like if you're in your 60s, 70s, later ages, like it really keeps you able to do everyday acts of living that other people that maybe like didn't continue with strength training or like staying active in some way wouldn't be able to. Like there's a lot, at least in America, there like a lot of our elderly population is mostly disabled. So like things like osteoporosis take over. So that is something that is definitely more common in women. So if women are able to train and maintain their muscle mass and bone density, the likelihood of like breaking your back further down the line, it definitely goes down substantially. So I just but again, to go back to your question, because like I totally just went off the rails again.
That's so good. You're good.
But I think that was so unrelated to the question.
This is where I'm going to tell you at some point we're still on the Uber pitch, and we'll be like, oh, fuck this drive. We're still going.
Dang, I don't know. Are we going across state lines? Like, we're going across countries at this point.
This guy's driving you here to finish the podcast. Like, we'll get there. But the core of why, like as an athlete, like so obviously because there is so much as a coach, you're clearly very passionate about sharing it with other people. But the bit that brings you back to doing it, because I think it's a hard question to answer. My computer is doing absolute field dates with these headphones. It's a real hard question to answer. Of like, what is it that is bringing you back to the gym every day?
I mean, a lot of it also is the community, I would say. Like my boyfriend and I train together, and he, like, if there was someone who inspires me most in the community, it's my boyfriend. Like, he is so passionate about like what he can do under a barbell. It's just like the coolest thing ever. This actually will make me cry. And like being able to like push each other in the gym is like such a special thing that we can share. So I like that also pushes me, and all of my friends in the gym too. The community is a really unique aspect, and I feel very privileged to be able to train with someone like Mark. So, yeah. Sorry that made me.
That's the soundbite I'm going to take and then just post that.
Okay, that's it. That's all we get to hear from Rachel today. Yeah, it's really.
So how long? Go on.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, it really, I feel just so privileged, which I think I already said, but just like he has such high goals for himself, but also I think that he holds me accountable to things that I want, and he's so supportive for like, even in preparation for this podcast, he sent me like 4 paragraphs of text and like things that I could start talking about or things that are important to me or important to the sport. And so, like, such a special person in and out of the gym.
Pretty amazing. So I have to ask, what were the 4 paragraphs?
Oh my gosh. So I'm preparing for nationals, so that was something that he told me that like maybe would be a good thing to talk about. But also even about you, and like he actually was the person who brought up like, let's talk about his brand, like how he developed his coaching business, or why did you even go with the strength studio? Why was that I heard you talking in the podcast that's posted about like maybe it'll change further down the line. We don't like the strength studio.
I wasn't sold. We'll talk about your prep for nationals though, because I have that as some of my notes to go through. But I have the notes are a full side. We won't get through everything, but it was just bits and pieces to cover. But the reason for the strength studio was I wanted to be open conversations for all kinds of people, right? So like the intent of this podcast was like I don't particularly care if every episode resonates with every person, but every episode could resonate with some person. So there could be someone that really benefits from this conversation and goes like, oh shit, like maybe I could do that. Maybe that's possible. Maybe I could change how I eat, what I plan, all that sort of stuff. There could be small elements, but there were like conversations. I had one with someone in finance to try to teach people building businesses, the stuff that they're not aware of, because I wanted to make sure. So the endeavor for me, whether it was coaching or the reason I got into any of this stuff or built a business, was because I never want people to have to waste the time making the mistakes that I made. Like my training history, I got injured too many times because I was an absolute moron. The learning with coaching, like I made too many mistakes. Trying to start a business, I made too many mistakes. And so the podcast, my hope is that whether it be a younger athlete who's listening to you and being like, oh my God, I could do that. Like, that's possible. I only realized over the last couple of years how many people you can impact by being reminded by those people that I've impacted them. And so that's kind of the endeavor. So the strength studio just felt a bit short for kind of the intent of the message.
I get
But I'm a
that.
hard man to please. I always want to change something.
And I think I like what you said about it being all encompassing though. I think like just calling it the strength studio leaves it up for like interpretation at the end of the day. So like it really can be translated into so many different facets of like where strength lies. Like even like you could go into different areas of like physical strength versus emotional strength, mental strength. There's just so many different ways you could string it, or even within strength sports. Like, are you interviewing powerlifters, strongmen, weightlifters, bodybuilders? So versatile, which is why I like it. But I do
Have you ever heard?
understand.
There's a phrase by what is he called? Mark something, the one who designed the slingshot, and he like patented the phrase of "strength is never a weakness," and it's
Yeah,
supposed to
Mark
be
Bell.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, Mark Bell, couldn't think of his last name, but yeah, like across all things that there's strength in knowledge, there's strength in wisdom, there's strength in like in people, and
Yes.
there's a lot of people have. It might be that they have one thing they say that has huge value, and I just want to find some of those one things and string them all together. But before you dodge more questions, so nationals, because this is the next bit, right? Because obviously you're saying like, okay, like the endeavor is coaching, that's the next thing you want to do, but like as an athlete, you're not exactly doing fucking badly. Like you are clearly a pretty, you probably don't see it as elite, but you are at an elite level.
Thank
Some of the
you.
questions I got asked was, can I have your squat? Can I have your bench and deadlift? Can I have your deadlift? Like these are the questions I got asked.
I got
People
asked some of
being
those
like,
too on mine. People were like, "How do
yeah.
I become a superhero?"
But like you start to realize like the standard you're at more often in the reflection of what people say. So for you, now you're prepping for nationals. What's the intent? What's the hope?
I'm so excited. I just to be on a national stage like what is projected to be for the USAPL. I think when I competed, I have done a national level meet technically for the USPA, but I had the worst meet of my life and still came in second place. So I just didn't feel like
Ouch.
I don't know if the competition was really like enough to drive me to push myself to the fullest of my potential. And so I know for a fact that this meet coming up will be very competitive. And like right now, they did release the roster. So I am like tied for 10th, which is crazy. Like I think that like that's,
Wow.
I mean, it is like out of 51, it is like the most, like it is supposed to be some of the best age
Mm.
and half kg women in the country. So like it's definitely like I'm still up there, but like I'm not close to the top. There's girls with like 540 kg totals that I total 495 right now, which is incredibly impressive, but just still far off. So it gives me a lot of room to grow, and just I think I'm walking into this meet with let's have like another 9 for 9 day that I can be so incredibly proud of. But my training right now has been going so incredibly well. So I'm just trying to like ride that wave into this prep. So my expectations before even this block, because I knew I was doing nationals, like I've been signed up since February. And so even before I did my most recent meet in May, I knew that this was going to be a goal of mine. So I think that like even before I started this wave of prep, my goal was really just like get a 470. Do you guys do dots in the UK?
Not in that. So I run my own competitions. We use dots, but not across the other
Okay.
competitions. No.
What do you guys use?
Like they still go by standard comp. Like I think they're doing it
Okay.
as GL points in the
Yeah,
UK
yeah,
with the
that
ITF bits.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay, that makes
So
sense.
it varies.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's just it's so interesting to me, like the differences between
There's
the
a
different
lot. Yeah.
countries. Yeah, there
But where you
are.
were saying the training's going pretty well. Now I'm going to get
Yeah.
this wrong because you paused 210 for two or 215 for like
So I did 215 for one, which is my competition max. So
that was it. Trying to remember. The training looks like it's going very well. So is it a case of like you wanting to just kind of pip some of the numbers you had? Are you setting high expectations? Or are you the type of person, which is completely fair, to be like, I don't even want to talk about numbers. We'll just see. Shut the fuck up. Leave me alone.
never. I love numbers. I love talking numbers. I'm really excited. I think that so actually, this is like top secret insider information. So we'll see what I end up pulling on Saturday. But this weekend, I'm supposed to pull, I'm scheduled to pull 220. That's on my program for this week. And if it goes well, I am allowed to load up to 227 and a half, which
Oh,
is
very
500
nice.
pounds in the United States. So I'm excited. I think I can do it. I do. I feel very confident after this wave of prep. And squat's been going really well too. But ultimately, my goal is just to improve on my total. So right now I have that, like I said, 495. And so my goal for nationals is like 510, 512 and a half, somewhere in there.
And what about the others? How do you find they're going by comparison? Because you're clearly a deadlift girl that loves her deadlift, but
I am a
you got a
deadlift
hell of a
girl.
squat, and what you say is not your best lift as a bench, but like people would kill for, just for the
That is
context.
fair. And I really, it took me a long time to get there on bench. I couldn't, I have a video of me failing 115, or what is that in kilos? 100, it's like 50 kg. I have a video
115,
of me,
yeah, 55? Something
yeah,
like that.
yeah, somewhere around there. Like a yellow, basically, me failing.
Oh yeah,
And
50,
so
yeah.
it's come a long way. So you can't quit on it. Like it, as much as it sucked for me to like have, and I kind of figured, I mean, I didn't really know what bench press was because, like none of the sports I played or like dance, you did have to do push ups though. And so I could never do push ups. And so I don't know why I expected that I would ever be even slightly okay at bench because I couldn't do a push up. I probably could do
It
one now.
wasn't a good indicator.
Not at all. Not at all. And so I like really I am proud of how far my bench has come. It's still like not where I need it to be, but I it's going okay. I recently injured my AC joint in my left arm, so that was actually something else that someone asked me on Instagram, and you probably could speak to this too, like how you mentally overcome an injury. But I mean, right now it's getting better, so I'm not totally like I wouldn't say my mentality's really knocked that far to the ground. Like I've had worse injuries, so right now I'm just like training through it the best I can. Squat's going amazing. Squat could not be better. Squat and deadlift are doing good. Bench is slightly affected by that injury,
but
but
but slightly. But I think there's something important there because obviously to speak to their question, like where you said, I've had worse, I wasn't knocked that hard. Like that psychology impact. For people who, if I speak on pain, my master's was in sports rehab. I'm fascinated by all of pain science, but the biggest impact is all of the placebo around your implications of pain, what you see, what you think is happening, and most people go red flag, don't touch it, don't move near it, it's injured, it doesn't work. And
yes,
some powerlifters would be like, I'll make it work. They're the people who get over injuries weirdly fast and people think they're gifted. And actually, it's normally the approach. It's not that they push it and they do something stupid. They're like, I'll find what works and I'll just crack on. And there's a lot to be said to being like, I'm not injured, it hurts. There's a difference.
absolutely. Like it almost is a crutch to say I'm injured and like a almost victim mentality to go about it from that perspective. And I do know powerlifters who have done that for sure, but versus taking it as like this is just a pain I'm having that I can work through and address through either like rehabilitation exercises or if you're doing like focusing on recovery. I think a lot of people underestimate the power of sleep, nutrition.
Yeah.
Like it's just those are foundational to being successful in the sport. And if those things are lacking in certain areas, like those could be maybe inclining you more to injury. But even if you are like, if you do have a pain that you experienced, those things can help work you towards living a pain-free life. Like those things, again, they're so powerful.
There's a lot within it that, yeah, and we could do this conversation all day, but I come across people who are like, I hurt my back and so I had to give up powerlifting. And I'm like, I'm not doing the like, I've suffered more than you because that top trumps kind of game is a bit shit. But I'm like, I've had 2 slip discs. I've torn my hip flexor. I've done the same thing with my AC joint. I have chronic cervical spine pain that for the last 3 years. And I'm like, things pop up and like you can deal with them, but it depends if you think you can deal with them. And then people just like, more often it's not the pain that scares you, it's the fact that you had to pull things back and your schedule not as strong and no one wants to do the work twice. And that puts a lot of people off without being a
That's
dick.
perfectly summarized. I think a lot of people are very intimidated by that, like, oh, I have to redo everything that I just did. Like, didn't I already overcame all of these obstacles. I already pulled this weight. I already benched this. Like now I got to take several steps back and like it's just going to take more time. And I think there needs to be that understanding and patience that like if you stop, if you quit, you're never going to get back to those numbers. Like you really are like so you're right. You're like not gonna be able to ever lift that again. And I think putting in the work despite all of that is still worth it. Like it makes it worth it at the end of the day because you can get back and surpass what you've done. It's just it is very intimidating and like people tell themselves they can't do it.
I think sometimes it's people who are kind of ready to call it a day already. Like
Ah,
there are
yeah,
times like
right.
something comes up and they're like, you know what? I was like, I was trying to think while you're saying that, like, is there a correlation? You know, when in relationships people are like, we're going on a break and we're going to see if we can make it work. I'm like, dude, you were out, like you were already done. I think
You
it's
already
people
quit
like,
on
I've
it.
had a niggle, so I'm not going to bench. And I'm like, you didn't want to bench. That's all it was.
They found
And
an
sometimes
excuse
maybe
and that's what they're gonna take.
I think they were done already with a relationship with bench, which I get. Um,
I
okay,
agree. Yeah,
so
no, bench is
I had
discouraging.
some. No more bench. I had some specific questions I got to get. I'm already aware that we've already made it over the hour mark, and as much as I genuinely think this is one of my favorite episodes I will do with this, and I'm going to ask you to come back on, I
I
want to make
would
sure
love
that I
that
answer.
so much.
We have so much more we could cover. There are
You.
so many more notes I had. We're still on the Uber pitch, but the okay. So the first thing I had was fuck, marry, kill, SBD. What are you going to pick?
I love this
I can
question so
guess.
much, and no one's ever asked me. Not
No,
even
I
in the
can.
gym.
Can I guess for you?
I would love if you did. I would love if you did.
You'll marry deadlift, you'll kill bench, and you'll fuck squats.
Spot on. What would you
It's
do?
a little
What would
predictable.
your fuck Mary kill
Exactly
be?
the same.
As you should.
Yeah.
Your
The only
deadlift's
problem.
insane. Can we hype you up for a minute?
Well, the
Your
problem is
deadlift is crazy, dude. It's
it's
so beautiful
fine.
to watch. Whoa, it's so spectacular. Just even like obviously you're lifting a fuck ton of weight, but also it's just so like technically sufficient. Oh God, it's so good. It's so
The
good.
annoying thing is my bench is my good lift, and I just don't want it.
Yeah, but it's
I'd get
okay.
rid of bench tomorrow. I'm like, I'm not fussed.
But deadlifts are more fun. Deadlifts are more fun.
There's one question I think is really important. There's a few of these that I am actually happy leaving. They're good, but we'll go on all day. There's a bit that I think is good. Is the question is what do you wish you would have known sooner? And like
Oh
there's
my
there's two
God.
versions of you, right? There's the one who just got into powerlifting, and there's the one who hadn't even got to it. Now we're always going to come to the caveat of like, if you had known, would it have changed the journey that you did? If you hadn't had all those shitty competitions, would you have just had the greatest one that meant so much? The head nod on the squat, I saw the whole thing. Like, would you have done that all again? So, if you could, what would you tell your younger self, or would you?
So, I mean, I think of me before the pandemic, I feel like was a completely different person. Like, I don't even know whether to consider that like a younger version of me because that, like, I just feel like I had such a misguided understanding of like fitness, health, nutrition, completely messed up in so many different ways. And so, I wouldn't, if we separate myself from that person, because I feel like we have talked extremely like at in depth about that experience of mine. But since starting in powerlifting, I would not change a single moment of my entire journey. Like every part of that, like yes, there were mistakes, but I had somebody and I like had a whole community of people who were there to guide me through it and help me prioritize the right things. Even when it felt like I had no other option but to quit. Like that no one ever let me do that. I continued to show up. I followed my program. I did my accessories. As terrible as some of the moments were, having those moments really made the wins and successes that I had later on worth so much more. And I actually said this to one of my friends recently who she just didn't have the meet day that she wanted. And I think a lot of people get on Instagram and say, "Hey guys, sorry, so it wasn't there on meet day."
Not the day I
Um,
wanted.
exactly, not the day I wanted, man. She had one of those days. And so I just told her like, it sucks now. Like you're like, I was capable of so much more. I've done more. I did better in the gym. I am strong. I put in the effort. I got all my water in. I slept when I needed to. I ate all my protein. Like, why did I still have a bad day? And I think that having that bad day, even if there's not necessarily like a good reason for it, will make the future days that are you're on top of the world just seem that much more profound and meaningful. And it'll just like it'll make the experience for you. It'll really just make you feel like every step of the way was so crucial to where I'm at. Like I wouldn't be here without those moments. And again, like they suck in the moment. Like I almost didn't even compete on the day that I hit the 495 total. Like I literally almost dropped that meet because I was just so terribly mentally abused by all of the failed lifts that I had not hit in prep. And so I'm glad I got through it. I'm glad I did it because just there was no better feeling than standing on that platform and holding on to 215, then standing back up with 187 and a half. I mean, bench was what it was, but those two, like squat and deadlift. I was happy I matched what I did in the gym. We'll say that. We'll leave it there.
We'll take that. That's okay.
That's just what it is. But there's just like, there's no better feeling than that. I wouldn't change any part of my powerlifting journey. I learned along the way, and I completely confer with you, like that they're just like, you want to help other people avoid the mistakes that you made. I feel like I had a whole community of people to help me avoid those mistakes. And I think that I want to carry on that legacy.
I'm not going to add to that. That is a beautiful ending to the podcast. If you're happy to leave it there, I think that's phenomenal.
I am. This was so fun, Callum. This was just the best part of my week.
We're definitely going to do this again. There's a lot more I wanted to talk about, and I won't drag it out for the rest of the evening. Questions. We'll have to do another one. You can interview me on one of them. We'll go again.
I would love that.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Callum. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm really excited for your success on this. This is really incredible that you're doing this, and I'm so proud of you.
I look forward to seeing Nationals, see what you do next.
Yes, sir.
And your coaching to start.
I'm excited.
All right.
I'll let you know. I'll make the announcement.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Callum.